Morgan Rogers. Rogers lets fly. It's 2-1 England. Bellingham's there once again on the follow-up. Morgan Rogers shot spilled by Neelan.
Jarrell Quansah is walking off the pitch in Mexico City. Red card, 54 minutes gone. And England, already up 2 goals in one of the most hostile stadiums on earth, are suddenly down to 10 men, in front of 80,000 screaming fans, with more than half an hour still left to survive. For any other England team in the last 60 years, this is exactly the moment where everything falls apart. It doesn't. Harry Kane calmly slots home a penalty to make it 3. Mexico claws one back. The clock refuses to move. And somehow 10 men in yellow shirts hold the line until the final whistle, and England walk out of the Azteca with a result that should have broken them. If you've watched this England team all tournament, you already know this isn't an isolated moment. Goalless against Ghana. Down against Norway before Bellingham dragged them level. Reduced to 10 men against the co-hosts. In altitude, in noise, in chaos. Every single round, this team has found itself one mistake away from going home early. And every single time, they haven't. For decades, this exact pattern would have ended in heartbreak. England collapsing under pressure isn't a stereotype. It's a documented, repeated history. The Golden Generation, 2010-2014. Tournament after tournament, English fans have watched teams stacked with world-class talent find new and creative ways to fall apart the moment things stopped going to plan. So here's the question nobody seems to be asking loudly enough. If this is the same nation, the same footballing culture, the same weight of 60 years of hurt sitting on every player's shoulders, why hasn't this team broken yet? The easy answer is luck. Moments of individual brilliance bailing them out match after match. And sure, Bellingham's goals, Kane's penalties, Rogers' composure, those moments are real, and they matter. But luck doesn't survive 6 different knockout scares in a row. Luck doesn't hold a red-carded backline together for 36 minutes in the Azteca. At some point, what looks like luck starts looking like something else entirely. What if none of this is an accident? What if the chaos, the scares, the constant walking of a knife's edge is actually part of something far more deliberate than anyone outside the England camp has noticed? Because when you look closely at how this squad was built, who was left out, who was brought in, and how calmly this team responds every single time the walls start closing in, a different story starts to emerge. Not a story about a talented team getting lucky. A story about a team that was quietly built, piece by piece, for exactly these moments. England have a plan, and it might be terrifying precisely because almost nobody has figured out what it actually is yet. To understand the plan, you have to start with the man everything runs through. Harry Kane arrived at this World Cup as England's captain, their record goal scorer, and quietly the calmest man in the entire squad. 32 years old, playing his 3rd World Cup, sitting just 3 goals away from becoming England's all-time leading scorer at the tournament. What makes Kane so central to whatever this team is building isn't just the goals, it's the timing of them. The equalizer against Congo when England looked one mistake away from the biggest upset of the tournament. The penalty in Mexico City, taken with the calm of a man doing absolutely nothing out of the ordinary, moments after his team had gone down to 10. Kane doesn't play like a striker chasing personal records. He plays like the one player in the squad who refuses to let panic become part of the conversation, and every teammate around him seems to have absorbed that same stillness. Then there's Jude Bellingham, who has quietly become the difference between England surviving these knockout rounds and going home early. 2 goals in 98 seconds against Mexico that silenced an entire stadium. The equalizer against Norway that came at exactly the moment doubt was starting to creep back into English shoulders. Bellingham doesn't just create moments of brilliance. He seems to produce them specifically when the alternative is elimination. That is an entirely different skill from simply being talented, and it's one very few players in world football actually possess. Behind them, the player almost nobody outside England discusses enough. Declan Rice has become the foundation this entire team is built on. Not a holding midfielder in the traditional sense, but the player who decides when the tempo needs to slow down, when a transition needs to be shut down before it becomes dangerous, when the team needs an extra body dropping deep to protect a lead. Rice is the reason England's 10 men held for 36 minutes in Mexico City. He is the reason the midfield rarely looks disorganized even when the scoreline says the match should be chaos. Everything England do defensively starts with him, and it's not a coincidence that England's toughest defensive tests have all come while he's been on the pitch marshalling it. And then there are the players who arrive from the bench and somehow change the entire complexion of a match. Morgan Rogers, still a relatively new name to most casual fans outside England, has become one of the most important pieces of this squad's identity. Comfortable playing as a 10, as a wide forward, as whatever the moment demands, and productive enough in every single role to justify the trust being placed in him. Against Norway, it was Rogers who completed the turnaround England needed. Eberechi Eze, meanwhile, brings the kind of close control and vision that can unlock the exact stubborn, deep-sitting defenses England have repeatedly run into this tournament. The calm under pressure that so many English-wide players have historically lacked in these exact must-win moments. This is the part that should genuinely worry every remaining team in this competition. England aren't simply relying on one or two superstars to bail them out. They have built a squad where different players step forward in different crises. Kane when the team needs composure, Bellingham when they need a moment of individual brilliance, Rice when the game threatens to fall apart tactically, Rogers and Eze when fresh legs need to change the rhythm entirely. That is not the profile of a team getting lucky. That is the profile of a team that has been deliberately assembled to survive exactly the kind of chaos this tournament keeps throwing at them. And that brings us to the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath England's entire World Cup so far. This team has not dominated a single knockout match. They have not won by more than one goal since the group stage ended. On paper, that should be a warning sign, a team living on borrowed time, waiting for the mistake that finally catches up with them. But history tells a very different story about which teams actually win World Cups. Argentina didn't cruise through 2022. They needed extra time in the final, a penalty shootout against the Netherlands, and moment after moment of individual brilliance from one player carrying them through danger. Spain won the entire 2010 World Cup scoring just 8 goals across 7 matches, 4 of them ending in tight one-goal victories. Champions are rarely the teams that look untouchable in every match. They are the teams that refuse to lose the moments where everything is falling apart around them. Which is exactly why this England squad deserves to be taken far more seriously than the constant criticism suggests. Every round of this tournament, pundits have said the same thing. Not convincing enough. Too reliant on individual moments. Too fortunate to still be here. And every round, England have found a way through anyway. That isn't unconvincing. That's a team that has learned, somewhere along the way, exactly how to win the ugly moments that used to define their downfall. Now comes the test that will answer every question this tournament has been building toward. Wednesday, July 15th. Atlanta, England versus Argentina, in what may very well be Lionel Messi's final World Cup match. Argentina arrive as reigning champions, comfortable in chaos in a way very few nations in history have ever matched, carrying a mentality forged by winning when it mattered most just 4 years ago. They know exactly what it takes to survive knockout football at its most brutal, because they've already done it. England knows something different. They know what it feels like to fall apart in exactly these moments, tournament after tournament, generation after generation. And for the first time in a very long time, they are choosing not to. Because here is what should terrify every neutral watching this tournament unfold. For 60 years, England entered major tournaments carrying the crushing weight of impossible expectations, and every single time, that weight became the very thing that broke them. This time, the story has been different from the very first whistle. Nobody has called this squad the Golden Generation. Nobody has declared them the most talented group England has ever assembled. The hype simply isn't there in the way it always used to be. And if history has taught English football anything, it's that the lower the noise outside the camp, the more dangerous this nation becomes on the pitch. So maybe that really is the secret plan. Not a formation, not a single tactical trick, a deliberate shift in the very identity of what it means to play for England, trading the burden of trying to look unstoppable for the far more dangerous quality of simply refusing to break. A team built not around comfort, but around crisis. Around players who each seem to know exactly which moment belongs to them, and who step forward without hesitation the instant that moment arrives. Every previous England generation was destroyed by the exact same thing, expectation transforming into fear, talent freezing the instant adversity appeared. This generation has faced that same adversity in almost every single match of this tournament, and instead of freezing, they keep finding an answer. Ghana couldn't break them, Congo couldn't break them, a red card and 80,000 hostile fans in Mexico City couldn't break them. Norway, with everything on the line, couldn't break them either. Now Argentina and Messi stand in the way of a first World Cup final in 60 years. And if this really is the plan, a team built to be at its most dangerous exactly when the walls are closing in, then the rest of the football world should be asking themselves a very different question than the one England have faced all tournament. It was never really about whether England could survive the chaos. It was about what happens when the team that's built entirely to survive chaos finally runs into an opponent who has never needed it in the first place. Wednesday will tell us which story this really is.